Thank you very much. So my name is Dave Glenn, and in 2009, I got a diagnosis, a word from my doctor that changed my life forever. And I spent the next decade in a really strange place. It's been some of the best times and some of the worst times in my entire life. So I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at 37 years old. And it was interesting because my doctor said, you are going to be in a position in probably he said you'll be in a position where you're going to lose the ability to care for yourself. I said, well, when's that going to happen? He said, in the condition you're in, probably the next 4 or 5 years. I said, so what do you mean I can't care for myself? He said, well, he pretty much told me I'd be a burden on my family, and or he said at some point in time you'll probably end up in an assisted living facility. So at 37 years old with 4 children, I kind of freaked out a little bit. And I decided to throw myself into work. So I did. I decided that I'd do whatever it took to make sure that my family had some sort of a legacy that I could leave behind for them. It's a really interesting thing to be told that you would have to be dependent on other people, and that's not something that I am. I'm not a dependent person. I've worked since I was 13 years old. And in many ways supported myself, although I have a wonderful supportive family. So I sort of worked myself into oblivion. I weighed 320 pounds. I was the fat, sick, and nearly dead thing. That was me. And about 7 years ago, I decided I was going to remove myself from the equation so that my family wouldn't have that burden of having to take care of me. And as I contemplated how to do that, my first plan was going to be a little messy, and I didn't want my kids to find me, so I decided that I would explore other avenues to do that. And while I was doing that, I really wanted to make the last time I had with my family good and productive. So I started. I was volunteering with a scouting organization my kids belong to, and I was doing some, believe it or not, motivational stuff with the kids. And I was talking to them about SMART goals and how to really set your sights on a great career. Because I've had a fantastic career. I've helped build a cybersecurity company in Detroit that's amazing. And as I did that, I started to recognize that there is a gap in our educational system. And really not just our educational system, but our parenting system and the context by which our children are being raised today. And what we're doing as a society, as a group of technology organizations, as professionals. So that's not really the story, because screws fall out all the time. The world's an imperfect place after all. I'll get back to that in a minute. So I run a cybersecurity room in Clubhouse, a couple of them, Cybersecurity Week in Review on Fridays, and Protecting Yourself at Home on Monday nights. And a week and a half ago, there was a young man named Ian, and we were interviewing he and his dad. His dad's a cybersecurity risk management executive, and we were talking to them about what it's like to grow up with a cybersecurity professional as a parent. So how paranoid are they? Do they look at your phone every night? Do they lock it down? What happens? And I asked Ian a question. So Ian's an 8th grader, 13 years old, and I said, Ian, how did they teach you when Zoom school started? How did they teach you about how to protect yourself on the internet? How did they teach you about how to effectively make sure that your information stayed private on Zoom? And he said, well, they don't teach that stuff in my school. I said, well, wait a second, so how often are they teaching you about cybersecurity and risk management? How do they tell you how to stay safe on Instagram and Snapchat and all these things you're a part of? And he said, yeah, they don't teach us that stuff at school. So that didn't surprise me, but it actually kind of shocked me. Back to my story for just a second. 7 years ago, I decided to live. And in the last 6 years, I was at a point where I was getting bronchitis or pneumonia every spring and fall. In the last 6 years, I haven't had a cold. I lost 80 pounds, and I've had the most productive years of my career in the last 6 or 7 years. Part of it is because I recognize that there is a gap in the education system for our children, and I've decided to do something to change that. Risk calculations. So there's a lot of complicated ways to figure out the idea of risk. There's empirical risk. There's all sorts of algebraic equations. But risk is the likelihood of something happening times the consequences if it does happen. This is a really powerful thing to learn. And if you can learn this earlier in your life, it's better. Because basically you're saying, what's the worst that can happen? And what's the best that can happen? And when you figure that out for yourself, you're all of a sudden enabled to make decisions on really any area of life. So posting a picture on the internet, sending a picture to someone, what's the worst that can happen? Are my parents going to see that? Are his parents going to see that? 86% of children say that they have online discussions that their parents don't know about. 39% of high school students have said that they have seen nude pictures of their peers that they didn't have permission to see. And so, we're in this scenario where our children are sharing of themselves. They are putting themselves in risky situations, and they don't really know, outside of someone taking their phone away and restricting them, they don't really know how to make those risk decisions. So I think you can apply that to really anything. Here's some stats that are really interesting, and I'll let you guys read those as time progresses here. But the idea is the average age a child gets a cell phone in the US is 10 years old. So how early is too early to start talking about risk and giving people the tools to make those decisions for themselves? What about stranger danger? So I asked Ian, one of the other moderators asked Ian, what about stranger danger? And Ian said, nobody's really ever talked to us about strangers in white vans and taking candy from strangers. We get that at home. This isn't to say that there aren't some great educators out there that are teaching children the proper way to stay away from these dangers. What I am saying is that there can be a partnership between technology companies, between us as professionals, between children, and really taking responsibility and accountability for learning this and building. Furthermore, I think that we can start building business and entrepreneurship knowledge in our kids earlier. So facilitating the idea, what is a P&L? How do I read a 10K? Why is it important? Because here's what happens. Not every kid goes to university. And even those that do, if you give them this knowledge earlier on in the process, you're facilitating a better world for them. So some of the solutions. So for kids, learn and ask questions. Be a mentor. You guys can take accountability for this. You can understand, again, as you're making decisions to how to protect yourself on the internet. Get involved. Learn. If you know somebody that knows a lot about technology, get engaged with them in a very specific and real way. If you have a friend whose dad is in cybersecurity, ask them questions. Ask me questions. Reach out to me. Educate your friends. Write your congressman. Build a club. Join a club. In terms of parents, take accountability for understanding what your child is doing, but not in a way that is artificial. You can't just say, I'm going to take your phone away from you. You have to teach them how to understand, how to make decisions, and how to really make take that idea of what's the worst that can happen, what's the best that can happen, and then make a decision based on risk. Teachers, ask for resources. Reach out to technology companies. Be a pioneer and reward your students for good behavior. I'm out of time here, but I just want to say a couple more things really quickly. Education enablement. For technology companies, we're going to have legislation soon enough that's going to require us to share with children and share with parents what's out there. We're going to have tighter controls, but we're never going to stay in front of stay faster than our kids, because our kids are smarter than we are in many ways. On the employee side, so technology companies need to take responsibility and accountability for education. And the more we educate our children, the more opportunity they're going to have. The more technology is growing, cybersecurity is growing, risk management is growing. There's opportunity. There's way too many jobs for the amount of people that there are. So get involved and engage. I'm committed to making this happen. I've spent the last 2 years starting to write a curriculum for business education for high school students. On recognizing and managing risk, on understanding crypto and blockchain, introduction to business technology, business structure, business math and accounting, how to professionally sell, how to engage with people. Because in every profession, from healthcare to business, from manufacturing to service work, all of this stuff is becoming more and more integrated with what we do, and it's up to us as a collection of professionals, as a collection of people with great ideas, to take the knowledge that we have and mentor others. Take time with some kids, find someone to mentor. If you're under 30, I think you're a kid. Right now, I'm halfway to 100 now. But if you're a kid, find somebody to mentor you, and then mentor somebody else. Pass it on. This is how to contact me. I'm a little bit over time. I appreciate everything. Thank you. Have a great TEDx, and get in touch with me if you want to get involved.